Hey YouTube, hope you guys are doing good out there. Alright, so today's video is going to be a 1200 round review. Actually, it's going to be a little bit over 1200 rounds, but we're just going to round down to a little over 1200 rounds for a $1,200 pistol the way I have it configured without the light. Alright, if you have not seen my previous videos about this thing with the LTT trigger job and everything, go ahead and check those out. But anyways, what's my thoughts on the gun so far? Not bad. Pretty reliable. Not the most reliable handgun I've ever had, and we'll get into some of that stuff. Does it shoot well? Yeah, it does. It shoots okay. Now, what are some of the things I've learned about this after shooting that many rounds through it? It is an acquired taste, like most double single actions are. Is it the best gun for beginners? No, it is not, for a few different reasons, and like I said, we'll get into all those a little bit later on. But overall, am I happy with it? Yes, I am. Now, during this range session, I was doing some index shooting on the first target that was close to me, which is about 5 yards away, and then transition over to the other target, which is about 15 yards away. And it shot pretty nice due to the weight of the gun. It does shoot smooth. It's not snappy, but I do have a tendency to pull the shots on that second round, as I do with most double single action pistols. The double action feels really nice, but then you go to the single action and it's a little bit of a transition, but after that I can pick it right back up. Now, like I said, reliability with this gun is not the absolute best. There was a little bit of a break-in period from this video. You could see this is I think when I first got the gun, and I think you may see this little range clip in my previous videos. Now, I did have one major issue. Now, it's not the fault of the pistol, it's the fault of this MagTech ammunition that I had. And as you can see right there, there is a bullet lodged in the barrel there. Thankfully enough, the bullet was lodged just right after chambering, so the following rounds were not able to seat and chamber all the way, so that's good, or else I would have blew up my barrel. Now, one of the things I did add on to the gun was this competition self-locking disassembly lever. Now, a disassembly lever is pretty good for being able to drive that gun down to help mitigate the small recoil that it actually has. And here are a few pictures just to kind of show the size dimensions of it compared to the slide release or slide lock lever. It doesn't stick out any further past that, but the ledge of the lever itself is a little bit slick, so it is easy to slide off of it. Now, speaking of the slide stop or release lever, the best way that I've been able to release it, or the way that works best for me, is not using my firing hand, but doing it almost more like a 1911, like you see here in this video. So again, overall thoughts. I think this gun is a pretty decent gun. Do I think it is worth the price tag? Yes, I do. However, it is not the best game in town, I will tell you that, and I'll give you some reasons why afterwards. But so what are some of my biggest issues with this gun? Basically, the sights that come with it, and more importantly, how you can mount a red dot to it. So the sights, they are tritium sights, which is nice, but for me, unneeded. And can't really see it here because the lighting in this room is pretty poor, but you see a tritium vial in there, and it has a smaller little circle around it. Now, for close-up shooting and faster shooting, when you're just trying to acquire these sights super quick, so you can aim a little bit more precisely than just index shooting. And index shooting is really just using the slide on the gun and pointing it towards the threat and pretty much letting it rip. All right, that's index shooting. But when you're trying to get a little bit more precise rounds on target, of course, you always want to focus on that front sight. Well, the way this front sight is constructed, for my eyes, Now your eyes may be different, so take this with a grain of salt, is not the fastest sighting system to acquire. All right, I'd rather they went with a non-tritium version, maybe some, I don't know, Spartan type of sights, to where it's like a high-vis orange, and just completely blacked out rear sights. All right, save us a little bit money and give us a little bit better of a shooting picture on here. And I did own a Beretta 92X Centurion, the black model with the curved trigger guard and everything, and it had something kind of similar to that, but the front sight post really wasn't as high-vis orange as it could have been. Yeah, you can just get paint on here, I understand that, and make it a little bit better, but I wish I would just do that out of the factory. Now, with that being said, I am planning on replacing the iron sights here with suppressor height sights, the M9A4 sights, but I'm going to have to shave off the front of the M9A4 sights because I kind of do a swoop down, which would prevent you from putting the base plate on there, whether it be Beretta's plate, Tony Systems plate, or I tell you what I think is best from what I've seen on the interwebs so far is the D-Law Designs plate. Check his website out. I think it's dlawdesigns.com if you're thinking about mounting a red dot to the Beretta RDO systems, well, the factory RDO systems. We're not going to even get into the Ernest Landon cuts. That's there's plenty of LTT videos. You can check out that option as well, but it is a little bit more of an expensive option as well. So with that being said, yeah, the Beretta mounting system for plates is not the best. And the plates from D-Law Designs, like I said, which are the only plates that will allow you to put a red dot on here to where you can get suppressor height sights to where you can co-witness a red dot. That's the plate itself is about an additional $135 before taxes and shipping. So you have that expense, and you have the expense of the sights, which are pretty expensive themselves. I think about, well, not all that expensive, somewhere between, I don't know, $65 to $85, somewhere around there. You guys can look it up. And then, of course, the price of the dot itself. So I do have an issue with that. When it comes to the trigger, the stock trigger in it is pretty decent for a double action, single action. It really is. But for me, and I would believe most shooters, we'll make sure this thing is good and clear. Yep, good and clear. So the problem that I have with double action, single actions, all right, and this isn't all the time, but this is just some of the times depending on how fast I'm shooting. You know, shooting that first double action, I'm actually a pretty decent shot with it, all right? But the problem I have is, you know, then when it transitions into single action, there's such a difference that I have a tendency to kind of jerk that trigger a little bit more, all right, because there's not as much resistance as the first one. So when I'm shooting in like a double tap or something, you know, starting from double action, then it transitions to single action, I have a tendency to jerk that trigger just because the resistance is on that single action is so much less. But then I'll get back on target by the third and fourth and, you know, sixth shot. So now, of course, you know, that is a training thing, but that is the thing that I think most shooters will come across with the double action, single action trigger pulls. Now, is it too much of an issue up close? No, not really. And are my shots that thrown off? No. I can still hit the targets as far as, you know, the body mass targets, you know, where all the good vitals are. Now, when it comes to headshots at different distances, I will throw a couple of shots off from the second shot if I'm, you know, trying to, you know, maybe do a double tap at a head target or something. I have noticed that, yes, if I'm not slowing it down a little bit, yes, I'm gonna jerk it left or right a little. So now if you're a, you know, a sniper ace with the double action, single action trigger, and you can shoot headshots at 200 meters with it, hey, good for you. but this is what I've seen across the board. And during the, gosh, how long has it been? About 15 years I've been shooting double action, single actions. This is kind of what I've seen across the board for most people. Reliability with this gun is pretty reliable. I haven't had too much of an issue with it. It's had just as many malfunctions as any of the other striker fire guns that I've played with in the past. Other than PDP, that thing was actually pretty reliable, and believe it or not, the M18 was extremely reliable as well after a break-in period with the magazines. But yeah, it's about on par with Glocks. I've had, you know, failures to feed and failures to eject and stuff with Glocks, and you know, a few other guns out there as well. So reliability, they're about on par with each other. Now with the M9A4s, this barrel cap, it stays on there pretty good, but if you're shooting about 100 rounds or so in quick succession and it heats up, be mindful of your barrel cap. You are going to have to just hand tighten it real quick. It's not going to fall off within 50 shots, so don't worry about it to where you always have to continuously check on it. In real life conditions, it's not going to be too much of an issue, but if you go to a high round count training class, be cognizant of that. This aftermarket disassembly lever thing that I use for a decent little ledge, it is nice. Like I said, it is a little bit smooth. There's not really too much of a texture to kind of keep your thumb from sliding, so you can use like gaffer's tape, do like 1 or 2 rolls around there maybe, and it'll stay down, or maybe just put a small little grip tape thing on there, and that can serve you well. So like I said, as far as beginner shooters, I would not recommend this gun, not because it's not an accurate gun, and not necessarily because the double action, single action trigger system. I would say no, because for the price of this gun, you can get a pretty decent and reliable polymer gun, a Smith & Wesson, Walther PDP, Glock, SIG, you know, all those CZs, you know, take your pick. And a lot of them already come with sighting systems that have different plates in there. Some come with suppressor height sights already, like the new Smith & Wesson M&Ps. Man, I am chewing at the bit to get my hands on one of those and try those out. Dry fired one has a little bit of the straighter, triggers on there with a little dingus, and they already come with suppressor height sights, different plates, and has really nice and aggressive grip. Man, that is a hell of a deal, to where, all right, you can get that pistol for around 600-ish, depending where you're at, and depending on what time you're watching this video. And all you need is a $300 Holosun red dot, and you are good to go. Versus this thing, you know, you're spending about $900 for the pistol, and if you want to put a red dot that would coat witness on it, well, about $135 for a plate. If you're looking at D-Law Designs, about another $65 to $85 for suppressor height sights, and then your dot. So, and this pistol is already costing you a little bit more. And like I said, I already did some trigger work and stuff with this, so you know, it was about $200. So with that being said, would I recommend this to a new person? I mean, if you had a lot of money and you didn't really care about it and you were really intentional about training, then sure. But other than that, probably not the best beginner gun out there. A lot of people, they're not going to have a ton of money to fully kit out their gun right away, so maybe go with one of those options instead. But do I like this thing? Yeah, I do. You know, the aesthetics of it, it's nothing fancy, would come out with that second type of cool. Now, I do have to say one other issue I have come across. Now, I did have a failure to eject today, but I don't know if there's a issue with one of the magazines I was running. I should have paid attention to which magazine I was looking at, so, or that was in at the time. So this one comes with the Metgar labeled mags, and these things are actually pretty nice. They holding this about 9 degrees. They shoot out pretty good. Now the Beretta magazines, and this is the sand resistant coated one. All right. It's not as slick as advertised in most other channels I've seen. It does work okay, but it's not as slick. Now the only issue that I've had with this magazine, or well, it comes with 3 of them. Now with one of the magazines, the base plate really had a terrible malfunction with it and kind of embarrassed me. So I was out shooting range with a bunch of other people. We're doing shooting drills, and we're doing emergency reload drills, and we had an empty magazine in our guns, and when my gun was holstered, I was tapping on the back of my magazine just to make sure it was fully seated in there to get ready for the drill. When I did that, this little nipple indent thing depressed in there, the base plate came off, and the guts of the magazine just spit out while we're online, and that was a little bit embarrassing. So I don't know why the hell that happened. So it did like a Springfield Echelon magazine barf, but I haven't had any other issues with it other than that. So but I did want to point that out, because I do consider, if there's issues with magazines, I do consider that a gun issue, and the reason why is because if it comes with the gun and it's a integral part for it to actually, you know, cycle, feed, and shoot and everything, then is what I consider a gun issue, right? Yes, granted, you can get other mags, but you know, it's an important part of it. So guys, that's about all I have with this. I am planning on getting that D-Law plate, but I was tempted to maybe sell this thing off and try out the new Smith & Wesson, especially since they have the better upgraded trigger systems in there and suppressor height sights. Ooh, but I'm gonna stick with this thing for a little bit while longer. All right, leave your comments down below. Please like, share, subscribe. If you have any questions, go ahead, put some questions down there. All right, guys, later.